Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Unwatched Pile. Yes, back again, dusting off that pile, watching movies, and then talking about them, and then pairing them with films that we have seen. Let's do it. With me, as always, of course, is the man, the legend, Andrew Cabral. What's up?
What's up, man? Yeah, we are back here once again. For some reason, I almost thought you were going to say chasing labels. Don't ask me why. Maybe I just have that constantly on the mind.
It's an acid flashback to the.
Yeah, you know what it is? I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was just going to happen.
Well, there's also the chasing labels background here.
That's what it was.
And you know, there's something I'll say at the top. So, I need to come up with a background for this show because I've never really done that.
Right.
I had one background once for this show, and it was something I just threw together. But I've never really had a proper background for the Unwatched Pile. I used to use like the thumbnail, or something like that. That doesn't really work. So that, and also the intro that, I think you've said this before, every time we use it, it gets flagged on as music
For
being
copyright.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, now it doesn't affect it, but we could never monetize this if we wanted to. But
Right.
I'm going to probably be doing a new one with new music, probably the same visual, but with new music, so that we don't have a problem. Because I have a new service that I'm using that provides no problem, no copyright problem music. So I'll be probably switching out the music. So we'll have to be saying goodbye to that intro music soon. Maybe
That's
next
okay.
month.
I'm not totally.
Are you sure?
To it.
I like it, but we're gonna have to change it so we don't keep getting hit with. It doesn't really affect the standing of our page, but still, it's
no, because we're not even at the point where we qualify for monetization on anything, so it doesn't affect us at all.
No, it's fine.
We're right on we're kind of like on that cusp of requirements. It's just you got to get over that.
We're not trying that hard to
exactly. It was never really about that anyway.
Yeah,
but I always check up on because the requirements have shifted over the years. It used to be so much easier, 10, 15 years ago. Now, obviously, with YouTube being as big as it is, requirements change and whatnot. But yeah, I've always noticed that we do get a little copyright thing every single time, which I always thought was odd because I think you even got it from copyright free music anyway.
Yeah, I got the music, I believe, from YouTube library. So
I don't know if like those things go in and out of print. Like, can you take something that's non-copyright, put a copyright on it, and then like screw with everybody?
Maybe the licensing for it got taken away at because I know YouTube isn't structured the same way. You can't go to an audio library like you could before. You have to like subscribe to their service.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know it, but that just shows you how long it's been since I've done it.
Yeah,
I guess it's been a few years because I've been using the same copyright-free music on certain videos for like the last 4 years or so.
Yeah.
But speaking of copyright and licensing and all that stuff, on the Unwatched Pile, we will be watching licensed things from various studios.
I was wondering where you were gonna hook this in. I was
yeah. I mean, Steven.
Did he go get his license or something?
No. Actually, I have to renew my license this year. It's one of those years where I've got to renew it.
I did it last year.
I've got to do it in June. By June, obviously. You can do it online now, but I still need one of those real IDs that they make everybody have now, which is kind of annoying because I don't think you need more than one ID, but whatever.
I thought my ID was real.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
But anywho, usually on this Unwatched Pile, we are accompanied by a guest, but this time Steve and I are doing it not solo, but I guess duo is the better term.
Yeah, we're going guestless this month, because I didn't have a lot of time to reach out to people, so I just figured that, every once in a while I think me and Andrew is it makes the show a little shorter. We can bullshit about something else maybe at the end.
Very true, like we're doing right now.
Like right now, we're talking about licenses
right now.
in all forms. But we got people watching us for some reason. Why are they watching us? I don't know, but. Humboldt's always here. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. So if you've never watched this show, of course, the whole thing that we do here is we go into our collections and pull out them unwatched films. The goal is you want to watch your collection, guys. I mean, we do a lot of blind buying, but the ultimate goal is to watch all these movies. That's the important thing. So we try to get into them piles and make them smaller piles by watching these films, and then coming here and giving a little bit of our thoughts on our first time watches. But then we go back into our collections and say, hey, what pairs nicely with this movie, I think. So then we talk about that second film, and yeah, let's do it, man. Anything else before we get into it?
No, nothing really get in. Let's dive in.
Okay. Oh, we got another person popped in and says, hey, hi, I have piles. Well,
yeah, I've got piles and piles.
Isn't piles like a disease too?
People don't know.
No, it's good.
Sounds maybe like a pox is a disease.
I feel like it was in a movie I watched. Somebody's like, God, what movie was it? But it was a movie where the kids was messing with his brothers, and he's like, you'll get piles.
Yeah, but I've got
what movie is it? It's in. I see it. It says something about getting dysentery and dying.
Oh, gee.
Oh, Jesus.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I got to think about
I can't even jump in. I don't even know how to Google that question.
I know. It's not something I'm describing very well.
Piles disease, question mark? Is that what we're going to Google?
No, but obviously this person's, Adams, is referencing his unwatched pile, of course.
Right, and I've got many piles around me constantly that grow and grow all the time.
It's the Grand Canyon of piles.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. But Steven, who wants to go first? You or I?
You know what? I'll go first.
Okay.
On this weird episode of just me and you, I'll start off because it's always you, or it's always our guest.
Right.
And I always go last. So I'll start. So just so we can make this more even, if you've seen over the last few months, Andrew's been on a John Sayles kick. I think he's done 2 John Sayles movies in the last 3 months. He's done, Lone Star. He did City of Hope, I think, last episode.
I did.
So, he's been on a John Sayles kick. So I feel left out. So I decided to do one of the John Sayles movies that I had just gotten. And it's actually probably the newest unwatched movie that I've done on this show, because I don't typically do things that I've just gotten. But I just got this. It actually just released out, I think this past week. From Fun City Editions, we have Baby It's You, directed by John Sayles, written by John Sayles. Let's do it. So Baby It's You is set in 1960s, and it's essentially a coming of age story where you have these two that cross paths that become lovers, but not necessarily lovers, but they fall for each other in a way. And it's very, I would say, realistic in ways. It's very, very, it has some operaticness to it, but it's definitely like strained and like, not like lovey-dovey. Like, it's not like they just instantly start loving each other. Like, it's very complicated. Mostly, I think the perspective of the movie is mostly from our female perspective here with was it Rosanna Arquette. Yes. One of the Arquettes, many Arquettes that there are in the acting world. And she, she does really well in school. She's really well liked. She's kind of, I guess you would say, quote unquote, one of the popular kids. And one day she just meets our lead male character, played by, I want to get his name here. You might know it before me. Vincent Spano. He calls himself the Sheik in this film. It's his nickname. And so he just shows up at the school one day, and he's dressed like in a suit, which is very, this is set in the 60s. So we're in that hippie area. Kids are being more colorful. They're wearing more like colorful clothing. And he's just in this school, and he's wearing this like blue steely suit. And he's just looking around the school, kind of just confident and just walking around, slicked hair, and he's an Italian. That's one thing. She's Jewish and he's Italian. There's some cultural differences there. But so he just one day sees her and just decides he's going to go up and talk to her and try to get in a relationship. And that's it's really how it starts. And this film just spans, I think, a good 3 or 4 years, roughly, maybe 3 years roughly, where it starts out in like the later age of high school and then transitioning into college and spend some time in the college years too. And you just see this relationship go from going a roller coaster all the way to the end. And I thought it was solid. It's definitely, this, I've only seen, I think the only John Sayles movie I really have seen is Mad One. So I'm really behind on John Sayles, and this is one of his early films. I believe this is like his second or third film. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I thought the chemistry was the main thing. I thought that the two leads, though very different, for some reason, just it really worked. It was really like, it almost felt like a throwback. It almost felt like a Streetcar Named Desire, like especially the Sheik character. He was like almost like playing Brando or something sometimes, of how angry he would get and how emotional he would get, how Italian he would get, like just like really over the top sometimes, just coming in and then there's a scene in the movie where he just like kidnaps her with her friend and just like has a gun and he's like, I will end you if you, and he's just overly emotional. Like he's obviously not going to hurt her, but he's just like, that's how he acts, because that's how Italians act. Like he's trying to be this persona, this Sheik character, this person, and that's that's where his identity is. So yeah, I mean, it's a movie that's on a surface is just a high school, early college romance movie, but it's got layers. It's got a lot more adult themes in there than a typical movie coming of age film of this type, especially that came out in 1983. This movie came out in 1983. So
right.
But yeah, please.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I did cover it here on Chasing Labels when it was announced a couple of months ago. I want to say it was probably announced about 2 or 3 months before it came out. I think it came out on April 15th. So that movie literally just came out on Blu-ray a week ago, pretty much.
Yeah.
A week ago. And it's a very interesting film because it plays like almost like a Romeo Juliet story. They're from different sides of the track. Like Steven said, the Rosanna Arquette character is the ideal high school student. She's like valedictorian level, brilliant in school, can go to any college she wants to go to.
Yeah.
She's, she does all of the extracurricular activities. She's popular. She dresses nice. She comes from like, probably, I believe, like a middle class family or maybe a little slightly higher. She's the ideal, right? And then you got the Vincent Spano character, who is, like Steven said, he's the opposite. You know what I mean? Like
he's from a straight up blue collar, like
blue collar working class family.
Yeah.
Like his parents are really not involved in his life pretty much at all. He lives in an urban setting. She lives in the suburbs. It's very much, like I said, a Romeo and Juliet type thing. Reminds me a lot of, there are other films of that era that are similar to it. I won't mention them now because I almost broke that rule just right now. But if you are familiar with young, like teen angsty films of that era, a lot of them kind of play on those lines. And even ones from the late 70s too. So it's interesting how a lot of the movies of that era played on those things.
Yeah.
It's also interesting how like movies from the 80s, when they would flash back, would be like going back to the 60s, like, hey, let's explore the teenage years of people in the late to mid 60s. Whereas now they're going back and exploring the lives of people in our teenage years, Stephen, of the 2000s. And so they're exploring the mid 2000s with certain movies, and it's very interesting how we've now come like almost full circle in that regard. But this movie, what is also interesting is it is exploring the complications of first love. You know what I mean? How impactful it is and how chaotic it is, because you're young, you're immature, you don't really know how to be in a mature relationship, and I use mature in quotes because you're a kid, you're late teens, you don't understand.
Well,
And the Vincent Spano character's got a lot of teen angst, emotional bottle up issues.
He does, and I think it shows. I mean, the thing is that was the only thing that I wish you would have gotten a little more of. Is I do feel like the film does in ways neglect his side of this whole thing. Like, you get him, but you don't get his family a lot. You get a couple scenes, but mostly you get her side, which is why I think that this is more her movie than it is his movie. It's more about her, and it follows her journey dealing with first love than it is about both of them going through first loves, because he's more experienced. He's a more experienced.
That is also a dichotomy thing.
He's older. He's a little older. He's more experienced, and
she's more naive to all of this. I think that's why, the emotions are so probably high for her, because of, the first time life experience. And I think John Sayles kind of plays a lot with the universal themes in that fact. That's what I really liked about the movie, is those teenage angsty first time love things in Baby It's You. You can see them in every generation of teenage years. You know what I mean? Whether you're a millennial, whether you're Gen X, whether you're Gen Z, you all go through kind of these life adolescent growing pains of human relationships on a romantic level.
And there's also a cultural switch here too, because it is the mid 60s, and the people that raised these kids are people from a generation before, where it was a very, as I described him, in a suit, and that's very much his parents.
Yeah,
like
they're part of the because they're teenagers in the 60s, so they're part of the
free love,
the baby, like the free, the hippie generation.
Yeah, the free love movement kind of thing.
Yeah, with all the cultural movements of the time, with the rebellious nature of the youth and the young adults of that era, rebelling against kind of the World War II generation, the greatest generation, as they're known as. These are, ironically, kind of the baby boomers. That's who Patricia Arquette and Vincent Spano's character are part of that generation.
Yeah.
And which is very much part of my parents' generation. So kind of watching this movie, it's kind of like almost watching, my parents' generation, how they would have acted at the time.
Yeah.
Although my parents were a bit younger than these two. They're probably about 10 years or so younger. But both my parents were born in 1958, and so their teenage years would have been in the 70s versus the 60s. But you know what I mean? It is of that era where, there is the difference between generations. But Baby It's You, I was ecstatic when it was announced, just to get more John Sayles.
Yeah, I know, man. You've been all about John Sayles.
I have, coincidentally. Like I said, last time we did Unwatched Pile, I did City of Hope. I did Lone Star one time. I've talked about, Mate Juan so many times here. Got to get more of his stuff. Like I keep saying every single time, just keep forgetting.
No, you're like me. Your sales kick is like when I first discovered Satyajit Ray, and I was like all on a kick. And unfortunately, the kick only lasted so long because you don't put out any of his shit.
Get Criterion has not put out one of his films.
Devi was the last thing, and that was like 3 or 4 years ago.
I think Devi may even be longer than that now. Keep in mind, it's 2025. Was Devi before or after 2020? That's what I gotta check. Let's see. Debbie came out in 2021.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So like, yeah, if I could just please, Criterion, if you have the rights, can you put out more Satyajit Ray, please? I don't care if it's in DVD form. Just please let the movies out of their prison.
They've got, I have it actually. They have the Late Ray Eclipse set. I would love if they would convert those to Blu-ray.
I already got the set. I just want something new. I want some new stuff that they haven't released before, because there's nothing, even worldwide. You're not gonna find anything that hasn't. You can find a couple of the movies like scanned on YouTube or like, but they're terribly, and some of them are not even transferred. And then I'm going on a tangent, but like, yeah, more Ray, please. But yeah, John Sayles. I'm definitely going to go into some of these other films that you've seen. I need to see Lone Star. I need to see City of Hope. But I really liked this film. I think also what colored this movie and made me like it a little bit more too was going into some of the features in here, because the features are really nice. There's like, it had to have been a good at least 30-minute long interview video with John Sayles talking about this movie. Amazing. And then each of the main actors all got their own interview video, kind of almost like video essay with the interview. kind of thing going on, and they're all awesome. There's tons of stuff on here. Our friend Jonathan Hertzberg over there does all this shit. He edits these interviews and does works on all this stuff. So
Yeah, he's been on Chasing Labels twice, I
at least a
believe.
couple times, yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to buy as much Fun City as I can. I'm a little bit behind.
There's a few I don't have
even have
either.
Maybe It's You.
But
Yeah,
now that I know how things are releasing from them now, I just order straight from, because that's the only way you can really get it the way.
the safest bet.
The
The
safest bet is
safest
just,
bet
yeah,
is directly from their website, Fun
which is
City
great.
Editions. Actually, I have it up right now. It's funcityeditions.com.
Yeah.
They do have a partnership with Diabolic DVD as well,
Yeah.
but they do have
Exclusive
slipcover
stuff,
exclusives to their website and
Yeah.
Diabolic DVD.
Yeah.
And once they sell out, they're kind of impossible to find.
Until
I've been
somebody
trying to
decides
find
they don't want them anymore. Yeah.
I've been trying to find Heavenly Bodies, and it's like if you can find one copy on eBay with the slipcover, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
People are just not selling them because the releases are so good.
They are, but I'm not. I mean, honestly, it's not that big of a deal. But like, eventually, like somebody will sell it at a reasonable price if you really want it. I think
Yeah,
it's going to take some.
Does pay off.
I think in this case, I think some of them movies people will decide they don't. I'm not saying that's an idea of the quality. I just think that's just how people are with collections. I've noticed it's just eventually people just decide they're going to start selling stuff. And it'll make its way around. I'm sure eventually. Some of them ones, Bad Company's another one that I wanted to get, but it was too late. There's like 3 or 4 in there that I've missed on slip covers, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm on the roller coaster now. I'm not getting off now. It's
right.
I'm in a rhythm. I already have the next 2 months bought. Like I've
nice. So you pre-ordered.
I pre-ordered the one with Robert
Falling
De Niro,
in Love.
Falling in Love, and then the
Breaking Glass.
So
yeah, that's a smart move because they're both definitely worth getting. Falling in Love with Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro.
Yep,
a romance between those two, and I think our buddy Scott Saslow worked on the cover art for that release, if I remember correctly. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Fun City's been doing great stuff.
They do great stuff, and I'm not worried about anything they're putting out.
There was an older release of this film.
Okay.
Called Baby It's You, but put out by Olive Films back in 2015, and I don't believe that release had anything in the way of special features. So this release here
is
an upgrade.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's tons of stuff in here. Audio. Bill Ackerman does a commentary, so you get him. You get interviews with all the main players basically. So it's awesome. It's a great release. That's Baby It's You. We both obviously like the movie. I think Andrew probably likes it a little more than me. I'd like to watch it again. But it's definitely a worthwhile worthwhile film to watch. A good 3.5 star movie for me. Out of 5. So
if we're talking letterbox terms,
yeah, right. That's the way I don't do 10 stars. But awesome. Before we get into your release, your Unwatched release, let's go through some of these comments. Acres of Movies has joined us. He's happy to see WUSA being discussed. Do you like Fort Apache, the Bronx? Is that? I guess that's
where are you looking?
Oh, can you not see the screen?
Yeah, I just.
It's on the screen.
Oh, never mind then. WUSA discussed. Do you like? So Fort Apache, I think is that the John Ford film? Because if it's so, it's a great film.
Okay.
It's starring Henry Fonda.
Okay.
But if you're talking about that, yeah, it's a good movie.
Okay.
The Bronx, I'm not sure what that is.
Also said, you are now in charge of an art house cinema. Can you please pick 4 films now or all time to play for the opening weekend? 4 films at our art house cinema. All right.
Do you got 4?
I'm thinking about it. It's going to be like a stream of consciousness thing. 4 films. Okay, so does it have to be like arty? Because I don't. All right, so I'm gonna pick Living in Oblivion just because it's right here in a poster on my wall.
That'd be dope.
I love that movie, and it's about filmmaking, and it's I think one of the best movies about filmmaking. So that's going to be opening night, and then so that's Friday. So Saturday, we're going to do, I don't know, Field of Dreams.
Nice.
Because I want to put a sports movie in there, and I think Field of Dreams is more than a sports movie. It's it's not an art film, but it's about father son relationship, and then Wild Strawberries, because it's probably one of my favorite Bergman films. That or Summer Interlude. Interlude that would be another good one. Summer Interlude.
I was not expecting a Summer Interlude reference today.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then my fourth movie is I'm looking at the shelf. Man, I hate being put on the spot. How about The Apartment, Billy Wilder? Because I love
nice. That. Okay, that's really good. You know what? I'm probably gonna go all classic just to be relatively boring. Some like since you went Billy Wilder, Some Like It Hot. I'll throw that in there just because that seems like just a great movie to put on the big screen. Yeah. Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis. Yeah. Come on, the big screen, that'd be awesome. If you want a little midnight movie madness, maybe Pink Flamingos, little John Waters. It was his birthday yesterday. Want to throw that out there. And then, you know, if you want to get a little suspense, maybe a little North by Northwest, or maybe, To Catch a Thief would look gorgeous on the big screen.
Yes.
So either one of those is cool with me. And then if you want a little action, actually, you know, we'll go a little political conspiracy theory, because this will lead into my movie with the Manchurian Candidate. Go with the original Manchurian Candidate. Why not?
You should have ended with Speed. Speed would have been a perfect last movie of it.
Or Speed 2, Cruise Control.
Speed 2, Cruise Control would have been perfect ending to that line of films that you just said. Awesome. That's the four we got there. He also says, where does WUSA rank you? But okay, we'll get into more
of that on that answer movie. That when I talk about the movie.
Yeah. Here, I accidentally skipped down by accident.
Okay.
Let's see. I think I've only seen Lone Star. It's nice to hear that there are there's films that are a bit talked about. Let's see. Sales is all right. We gotta get going. We got too many comments.
I know Josie's down here with her unwatched pile. Have you? Let's see. Bustin' Loose ornament.
Bustin' Loose.
Or was that?
Oh God, no. Gossiford Park.
Nice. Dragons Forever is that Jackie Chan film?
Yes.
With what's his name?
88 films released.
Yeah, that's a really good. That's a fun action.
Wolf Children. I have that. That's a good movie. That's
Frailty is criminally underrated.
Oh, Frailty. That's Bill Paxton directed.
Yes, that's with Matthew McConaughey.
Yes.
I think about the movie Swingers way too often.
Yeah. Why would you do? No, I'm just kidding. It's a good movie. That's John Favreau, right?
Doug Liman, John Favreau.
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn. They go to Vegas. Well, that's part of the movie. They go to Vegas.
Yeah.
It's such a hangout friendship movie.
Yes.
That has a lot of interesting universal themes in it. Yeah. I think about that movie.
Yeah.
Often.
Awesome.
But yeah, we have a lot more comments here.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Criterion calls you. They want to pick one Pauly Shore movie to make a Criterion. Which one is it?
Son-in-Law, just because I don't think it has a Blu-ray at all. And
it's a
great holiday film.
Yeah, Son-in-Law. All right. Let's see. Art school films. The Color of Pomegranate. Oh, this must be linked to the last one, maybe. Romeo is Bleeding. I think MGM owns the rights. Does this help or hurt being able to get a new special edition soon?
It doesn't hurt it as much as people would think, because for some reason I see a lot of MGM catalog titles getting released by boutique labels nowadays. Even Fun City Editions has gotten their hands on some MGM films, which is fascinating to me, because it kind of all depends on where you're going in their catalog and who owns the rights. Because the MGM, is kind of all over the place.
Yeah. All right. So let's do it. Let's get back into the show. Andrew is here with his unwatched pick. Go for it, man.
All right, so I picked the movie WUSA, starring Joanne Woodward, Paul Newman, and Anthony Perkins. This is a film that when did it come out? 1970, and it is directed by Stuart Rosenberg. And Stuart
Stewart,
Rosenberg,
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yeah,
but anytime somebody's name is Stewart, my mind goes straight to Mrs. Doubtfire.
really,
Stewart Dunmire. I don't know why that name sticks out because I've seen Mrs. Doubtfire maybe like too many times.
you
And
probably
that's
have.
Stewart Dunmire. That's the name of the Pierce Brosnan character in the film.
I didn't realize that was the name of the Pierce Brosnan character.
Yeah. Sorry, go back into it. I'm sorry.
Yes, so Stuart Rosenberg did work with Paul Newman a few times throughout his career, particularly on the movie Cool Hand Luke, which I'm pretty sure is the movie everybody most remembers. He also did I think he did both, or he did The Drowning Pool, which is the sequel to that other film that Paul Newman did where he was a private eye. Harper. Right. He did the movie, but I don't think that was done by Stuart Rosenberg. But he also worked with Paul Newman for Pocket Money, and I don't think he did The Macintosh Man, but there's a bunch of like lesser Paul Newman films that people are just not aware of. And I think WUSA may be one of them. And what is interesting about WUSA is that this is as you can tell just by the cover, there's a political portion of the plot of this movie. A political portion of the part of this movie that is incredibly far ahead of its time and more relevant today than I think it was back in 1970. So the premise of this film is that Paul Newman plays this drifter guy who just comes to town kind of randomly. I think it takes place in New Orleans, Louisiana, or in Louisiana someplace. So in the deeper South area, which I guess plays into it if you think of the whole political part of this movie. And he just happens to get a job at a radio station called WUSA, and he's reading like whatever the prompt is. You know what I mean? Whether it be ads, whether it be whatever. And it is a conservative radio station. Like they're politically leaning to the right with conservative politics and things like that. Think of a modern day, like you see with, I mean, Rush Limbaugh's now passed away, but people like him, you know what I mean? Like those types of radio shows that were on, that had been around for years and whatnot. But think of something like that. And there's local radio that are like that today now, political radio and whatnot. So he gets a job there. But the thing is that he's not a politically conservative person. He's very much on the opposite spectrum, which plays into this idea that Paul Newman in real life was very much politically active and was very much a liberal and left-leaning political activist. Like he was at the civil rights marches and stuff like that back in the 60s and all that kind of stuff. And throughout his life, he was always politically active on the liberal and left. And in this movie, he just takes this job there because the pay is good and he needs a job. You know what I mean? And he's so cynical and he kind of denialist and kind of doesn't care. So that's why he does it. But in this movie, he is kind of embedded and surrounded himself by people who absolutely hate this WUSA radio station and the local political conservative scene and what they represent and what they're saying. And one of them happens to be Joanne Woodward, who he tends to meet. They have this romance, kind of abrupt, and they move in together. And there's a lot of scenes of just Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward just like lounging around their apartment, like drinking and smoking and just talking. And I'm like, if you love just seeing this married couple in real life in a movie together, the movie's worth watching just for that, because their chemistry is there. You know what I mean? All this kind of stuff. And that's really kind of fascinating. It's great. And Joanne Woodward is an astounding actress. Like, I think she's one of the most underrated actresses, maybe ever, in terms of, because, over time, I think her career and life got so overshadowed by Paul Newman because everybody knows him more so. But Joanne Woodward is a really great actress. She's great in this movie. But the Anthony Perkins character is also in this area as well. He happens to be a neighbor in this little apartment complex, which is filled with like hippies and and people like that, who are just kind of sitting around and smoking pot all day and whatnot, but are like politically active too. So they're like embedded in this like structure of all of these people. And meanwhile, he's working with this political radio station that is like the enemy, you know?
Yeah.
And but he's so nihilistic about it and so cynical about it, he doesn't care. But Anthony Perkins' character has been hired to go around and take surveys amongst people who are on welfare. And he's being sent out to typically minority people, people who are also the working poor, people who are also like sex workers and things like that. And come to find out, it's not a spoiler here, come to find out there are political reasons why he's been sent out to do these things, and he wasn't aware of it. And it's tied back to this radio station. And this radio station is doing things politically and manipulating their media presence to push an agenda for their political ideologies. You understand the
Yeah.
modern context I'm getting here? We see this all the time. We see it on social media, we see it in the news, we see it on podcasts, we see it on just ads on social on everything. You know what I mean? So this movie in 1970 is taking the concept of a multimedia company or a media company, this happened to be radio, and pushing a political agenda using propaganda, using lies, using all kind of stuff um, to paint certain people in society as bad people, those who are the working poor, those who are on welfare, those who are minorities, all this kind of stuff. And they're saying, oh, see what these people are doing with this welfare money, all this kind of stuff. So they're taking all of this data that they're getting and they're manipulating it and they're forcing their agendas on people. And that's kind of the modern connection we get with this movie. That's the great part of this movie. Unfortunately for me, the movie's kind of all over the place structurally
Mm.
when it comes to character things, when it comes to story structure things. Um, things progress in a way that doesn't seem organic, and we're kind of like taking leaps with character arcs and things like that. Like it's kind of baffling how we go from 0 to 60 of just Paul Newman working at this radio station to like all of a sudden this radio station is a political machine that's pushing an agenda and that they're big bad and like overlordish. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're the Empire in Star Wars all of a sudden. I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, how did we get here? How did we get here? So this movie is not structurally great, but its ideas in it and its themes in it and the actors in it are all very, very good. Um, and this release here was put out by um, Olive Films many years ago. As you can see a little insignia here. It has no special features. It's kind of a no frills set. You just get the movie on on Blu-ray essentially. And that was pretty much Olive's thing, where they were just taking catalog titles and putting them on Blu-ray at a time in which they weren't available on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Nowadays, in the modern boutique world, a movie like this would probably get a Kino release with like a commentary and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It is a Paramount film, so I'm assuming maybe somebody will pick this up and give it a nice re-release. Like I just said, Kino seems like a candidate for that because they've been working with Paramount so much, as we've been seeing lately with a lot of their releases. And for a Paul Newman film that's as politically charged as this, and considering the times in which we live in, it would make sense that this would get a re-release. This is now out of print, but you can still find it if you want it. And if you're a completist like me who wants to buy all the Paul Newman films and you want it, you had to get it.
Yeah.
I found this on like Hamilton Book, hamiltonbook.com for like under $10 because a lot of the Olive Film catalog just ended up on these websites for dirt cheap just to kind of burn off inventory.
Yeah.
And that's where I ended up getting. I think I got this like 3 years ago. It's been sitting in my unwatched pile for that long. But yeah, that's WUSA. So an interesting film, not a great film, but good themes, good stuff going in it. Um, and Paul Newman's great in it. He looks fantastic in it as well. So does Joanne Woodward. But yeah, that's WUSA.
Awesome. Yeah. I like there's something about movies that have like a radio station or a DJ at the middle of it. It's kind of like always kind of cool. There's like always like a some kind of like there's an intimateness. I can't speak. Intimate quality to it. like that I like, whether it's something like what is it? There's that one with Elliot Gould. Was it called The Radio? Something. It's called. Who put it out?
You talk about is it Talk Radio?
Talk Radio. That's it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Airheads. That's another one. No, I do like Airheads.
I was interesting that I was thinking about Talk Radio from 1988. That's the Eric Bogosian film.
Yeah.
That's the Oliver Stone film, which of course Oliver Stone and politics always go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And there are other films dealing with kind of like, using media to manipulate messages and to use and
yeah. I don't want to say too many different movies.
Yeah, because my pick is gonna be similar to that.
Yeah.
But this concept of the radio is very much not, it's kind of people don't understand the power of radio nowadays. Because nobody listens to the radio anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you talked about how things moved so fast. You didn't understand how things shifted. So, well, at the time, that was the internet. That was the way that a lot of people were listening to the radio all the time. Like that was so maybe it isn't that crazy to think that.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't understand this concept of the 24-hour news cycle has only been around pretty much since the 90s. CNN, things like that has only been really around then.
Yeah.
Even like local news, is not the way it wasn't the way it was back then like it is now. We have a constant stream of news and information now that did not exist back in 1970.
Oh yeah.
So like a radio presence or a news presence could literally push an agenda and people would adopt it because they just didn't know other information that could counteract it. You know what I mean? They didn't know that these are not true facts, that these are lies, that these are just made up, nonsense to push an agenda. People are very much ignorant to that idea, and even nowadays they are as well, even with all the information we have. But yeah, it was a very interesting movie from that perspective. But Steven, what is going to be your pick? I'm curious. I'm very curious.
Yeah. Before we do, let's try to. We got more comments here. I won't go to everyone because some of this is just conversational. But I see Acres of Movies got another scenario for us, so we'll do this scenario here. It's 2000. It's 2300, and you're your age now, so we're our ages, and we have been cryogenically frozen in a lab. Every movie star and creative performer of all time are frozen. They're at their optimal age. What four do you unfreeze?
Nice.
First. Well, of course.
Say it. Say it.
M. Night Shyamalan is good.
That wasn't where I thought you were going.
No. I would say Steven Spielberg. I don't care what anybody says, one of the greatest of all time. So Steven Spielberg is definitely one of the filmmakers I would pick. Probably if I'm picking an actor, let's just say if I'm picking an actor, probably Robin Williams because he's my favorite. He's my favorite. An actress, I'd probably pick. That's tough. I don't know. I like Emma Stone. I think Emma Stone's going to be one of the great.
That's interesting. I was expecting you to go Nicolas Cage first off the bat.
Now that's
just to bring him back for the future.
I still have one more pick.
Okay.
It's not Nicolas Cage. I love Nicolas Cage, but if I had to pick four, I mean, I could pick him later. It says the first four, so like we're going to unfreeze more. Yeah. We're going to unfreeze more people. So so now I need I need an editor or something. I don't know. We'll just get somebody else to edit. But a composer, we need fucking John Williams, of course. Yeah.
Nicely done.
There you go.
First four for me right off the bat. Yeah, I would just to go along with it, Paul Newman would be dope to unfreeze.
Yeah.
Instantly the quota for most beautiful people in the world goes up. And then, Orson Welles, just because I want him back around now, that'd be kind of dope.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Who else would I be? Just to mix things up, go with an actress. Katharine Hepburn would be kind of good, but yeah, Katharine Hepburn, why not? That'd be kind of amazing. And then fourth, just for the heck of it,
Whatever other creative you want, man.
yeah, whatever creator I want. I don't know, Betty Davis.
There you go.
Betty Davis.
Betty Davis,
And
man.
there you go. Um, and then yeah, there's some other things here in the chat. They were
Go ahead.
talking about the movie, The Effect of Gamma Rays on Moon-Eyed Marigolds. That's
Yeah.
a really good movie. There's an indicator release of that. That's very, very
Yes.
good. I think there's a Kino release of that too. But that stars Joanne Woodward. I think that's directed by Paul Newman. Yeah. And they talked about Harper. Yeah, Harper's the one where he plays a private eye. So he plays like a Philip Marlowe private eye in the 60s. And then there
Mm.
was a sequel called The Drowning Pool as well. I think Lauren Bacall was in Harper. So if you want to see Paul Newman as like doing a 1940s noir, but in the 60s, like that's the one. That's the way to go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's available through. They're both available through Warner Archive if anyone's interested. But yeah, what are you thinking, Steven, in terms of your pick?
All right. So, like you were saying, like there are films of the age that maybe could have fit well. I had a couple other ideas, but this was the first movie that came to mind. I typically go with my gut with these pairings. Like the first movie that kind of hits me is the one I end up, unless I find something that's just totally a better fit. But like this was the first movie I thought about. I was like, oh yeah, that works. And as I rewatched it, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not like a perfect fit, but like you can really put these movies next to each other and they really feel like that they're in ways mirroring each other, and they could almost be kind of spiritually sequels to each other in a way, just because the movie that is my pairing is set like decades later in the early 2000s, but it's also featuring a young girl kind of coming of age, dealing with love for the first time, and that's the film Lady Bird.
Nicely done.
Directed by Greta Gerwig.
You know what? I was thinking of that exact movie when
Really
we were
were
talking
you?
about it.
That's good. Good minds think alike. So, Lady Bird, like I said, it's set, I believe, in 2002. And I believe this is very kind of autobiographical to Greta Gerwig's life, I believe, right? If I remember correctly. In this, a lot of the stuff,
I
things
want to
she went
say
through.
yes,
I
because it
believe
very,
so.
very much feels like it, but I don't know if Greta Gerwig's that is in the right age frame for that to be.
I don't think that the time period might not fit, or maybe I'm thinking
Right.
of Frances Ha, but I don't know what.
Right.
I know that was not her movie. That was not her. She wrote that, right?
Yeah,
Or
I
was
would
the
have
writer.
to look up her age and then do mental math, which sounds just so strenuous.
But yeah. So, but either way, that's not. It's besides the point. But I believe this was her first like directed movie, right? It was Lady Bird, right?
Let me see. Of course, it starts off with her being an actress. Let me see. I'm looking at. No, she did. She did another movie called Nights and Weekends beforehand, which I think she co-directed with Joe Swanberg.
Okay,
So
so
this is
this was
kind
our
of
first solo
for
directed.
solo.
Yeah, first solo directed film, but it was very acclaimed when it came out. Starring Saoirse Ronan, and also has Timothy Chalamet before he was like super mega star as he is now. Along with what's the other guy's name?
Lucas Hedges.
Lucas Hedges, who's like completely disappeared. We don't see him doing anything right
He's
now.
only in his dad's movies. I don't know if you noticed that.
No, I didn't notice that. But and then Laurie Metcalf is kind of the other lead of this film as well. Plays her mom, and yeah, it's a very much a similar kind of thing of like coming of age. The film's set in Sacramento, so a lot of it's almost a character in the film. They talk about she talks about how she doesn't like that, how boring Sacramento is, how she wants to leave it. She talks about it all the time throughout the film. And she's got a friend, they're very kind of like awkward, kind of not the popular ones of the school, but she's very outgoing, and she meets the Lucas Hedges character and they start dating, and like, so she goes through different trials and things with a couple different guys, and it just leads her in different directions. And throughout the movie, I think the core thing here is the relationship with her mom. Laurie Metcalf's character is kind of, to me, and this is what's a little interesting, is as I watched it, I kind of, instead of thinking about the two main boys that she dates in the film being kind of the placeholders for the male character that is in A Baby It's You, I kind of looked at Laurie Metcalf's character as kind of the mirror here in Lady Bird, because yeah, it's not a romantic relationship, but obviously mother and daughter love there is unconditional. But there's, in this film, you know that there's this strain on the relationship. Her mom is very hard on her, very much criticizing her all the time about everything she does. It's because she's dealing with her own past. She's dealing with how her mom was an alcoholic and she was abusive, and so now she has been affected, just like our what was the actor's name? Spano. His character's name, the Sheik, was very much, in a family that was not involved. You could say somewhat abusive, and not really raising him in a way that he could be, a good part of society. So he, they're both, there's an amalgamation of different characteristics that I think really mirror the movies well. Also, it's funny that, Lady Bird is a nickname that that the main character gives himself, just like the guy in this film, and Baby It's You, gives himself the Sheik as a nickname. And also, another comparison, Rosanna Arquette's character does a play, and she's into acting. And of course, in Lady Bird, though she doesn't care about acting, she joins a play. Very similar kind of things happen in the story, coming of age kind of things. So there are some of the mirroring. Like I said, obviously the stories don't play out the same way, and the college aspect comes in at the very end of Lady Bird. There's this, kind of departing that happens at the end, and college is kind of a footnote at the end of the movie. But I think that the coming of age part of it, and a lot of the kind of harsh realities of getting into intimate relationships with boys for the first time, are things that are explored in both these movies, I think, really well. And I think personally think Lady Bird does it better. And this might be partly because it was made by a female director. I think the female perspective there might have informed that Lady Bird a little better when it comes to some of the feelings and the perspective that film had, compared to Baby It's You, which I think is a little bit more old fashioned. And of course that film is an older film, and it's looking at an older era. So I think I think this would be almost like a fun, like I said, spiritual sequel, because like you could look at Laurie Metcalf's character as being the kind of girl that would have been the girl in Baby It's You. And that was her maybe first love experience. And then this would be her daughter's first love experience later. And of course the age gap probably wouldn't make sense, but in the sense of when that movie came out, when that movie takes place and when Lady Bird takes place, that's like fucking 40 years. But yeah. What do you think? What do you think of Lady Bird?
Yeah, I remember loving Lady Bird when it came out. It being incredibly genuine, incredibly, um, authentic to an experience of someone experiencing their last year of high school in the early 2000s. I believe it took place in the academic year of 2002 to 2003, which is coincidentally my freshman year
I
of
was
high
going to
school.
say we're both pretty close. Like you're a year older than me, so
Right.
I was like about to go into high school, and
I was in my freshman year of high school
yeah.
in that time frame, and coincidentally, Lady Bird was in, I believe, a Catholic high school in the movie,
Yes.
and I was in a Catholic high school at that time as well. So there was a lot of references to being in that particular type of school and being in that particular type of environment that was very accurate, very
Yeah.
accurate to the time. So Greta Gerwig definitely was able to hit on those more authentic, genuine details in that movie, and also, particularly obviously from a woman's perspective and a young girl's perspective, being able to hit a lot of those emotional details too,
Yeah.
very accurately. Like the Ladybird character is, going through all of these emotional turmoil of that time, like you were saying, Stephen, dealing with romantic relationships with different types of young men, boys at the time, experiencing those things, and then also experiencing a very tumultuous, conflicting relationship with her mother, and
Yeah.
who they could not be more different types of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they was constantly butting heads throughout the movie. Coincidentally, when you're at that age, you're probably doing a lot of those things with your own parents or guardians or whatever, or adult figures in your life. And then having to decide where to go to college, and then this conflict there,
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
to deal with grades, having to deal with friendships that are changing. You know what I mean? Because you're at that point where things could diverge. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it happened in Baby It's You, where relationships diverge. There's a point in Baby It's You where the Rosanna Arquette character does go away to college, and the Vincent Spano character, who he's not academic at all.
Yeah.
He barely went to class. he just
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
he's just kind of stuck in getting a job after high school ends, and not leaving and not progressing your life in any type of real way, while
Yeah.
she's going on to do other things.
Yeah.
And then in Ladybird, you get kind of a more centered perspective as to what the Ladybird character wants to do at that juncture. And it comes to having to go her own way, away from her parents. She goes, I mean, spoiler, right? She goes to the college on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Um, and Laurie Metcalf was really good in the movie.
Oh yeah,
I
she was
thought she was
amazing.
a lock to win the Oscar,
Yeah.
and it ended up going to Allison Janney in I, Tanya,
Mm.
who played the very unhinged mother of Tanya, who had a bird on her shoulder. Um, but yeah, Lady Bird's really, really good, and Greta Gerwig is a really, really good filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like, very, very good.
Yeah.
And I
Little
know,
little
obviously
women. Little
Barbie
women. Mm.
was gigantic movie. She's doing Chronicles of Narnia now for Netflix, which is
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. But yeah, even if you look at Greta Gerwig's acting career, a lot of interesting work in there. She worked obviously a lot with Noah Baumbach, who
Yeah.
kind of comes from the same school of like Wes Anderson type of indie realm, not quite as quirky, but more grounded in reality, if you will, well, somewhat reality. If you've seen Francis Ha, it's very, very interesting film. I actually made a reference to Francis Ha yesterday, because in the movie Francis Ha, Greta Gerwig's character goes to Paris for like the weekend, and she just like stays in a hotel room, and it's like which kind of blows my mind, because if you're going to Paris, you got to experience Paris. You don't go there just to
Yeah.
hang out in a hotel room.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't go to Paris for a weekend.
Yeah.
You can't
Well, some people
experience.
do.
Yeah, if that's like your regular like weekend trip, yeah, yeah, going to Paris for
Whatever.
the weekend, man, you live pretty great. You
Living it
live pretty
good.
great. Um, but yeah, Lady Bird was really, really great. That's a great pairing. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
and
it's
yet
where it
again,
works
another
good.
coming of age type of movie. There's so many coming of age films. I mean, I was like I said, when you were talking about Baby It's You, I was thinking of movies of that era, like Valley Girl. I was
Mhm.
thinking of um, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
I was even thinking of Grease, just because of
Mhm.
the difference between the Sandy character and the John Travolta character,
Sure.
um, and just kind of the dichotomy difference in there. But yeah, good pick, love
Yeah.
it.
Apparently, Dustin Shroop said, "So weird. I listened to a podcast today called '80s All Over that drew the same comparison between Lady Bird and Baby It's You. Oh, I guess
Oh,
I'm not the only one."
that's a good one.
Yeah, I think it works really good. I think that's what I'm saying. Like it struck me. It was like I went with my gut, and it struck me. I was like, them two movies, like, and I got to just go off my collection. Like, I'm not like just
Yeah,
thinking of movies
that's
out loud.
that's the caveat with.
Yeah, I'm looking at my own collection, and I'm like, what works here? And there was Lady Bird, and I was like, that works. Like that's yeah. And then as I watched, the more I watched it, I was like, yeah, this movie really gets it. It really draws a really good comparison to that film. So, all right. Well, now we're gonna get our pairing for WUSA from Andrew Cabral, man.
Okay.
Please tell me what it is, man. I gotta know
All
what I gotta
right.
watch
So
for this.
we got WUSA. Now I could have gone a bunch of different ways. I was thinking political conspiracy theory, political motivated movies. I was thinking all kinds of stuff, but then I decided to kind of pin it down to media manipulation. Uh Media manipulation, particularly for personal gain or for gain in any way. So I was thinking of the movie Billy Wilder's Ace in the Hole.
Ah, yes. It's been a minute since I've seen
It's
this.
been
Yeah.
a minute since I had to rewatch it myself. It has been a little while since I've seen it. I knew the movie, Billy Wilder, one of the all-time greats. But then I was thinking of other types of media manipulation movies. I was thinking of even like Network would have been the easiest one. Like
Yeah.
for me, like Network right away, you television,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole purpose, the whole message of that movie is people watching television and television being a way to mass manipulate people to doing anything they want and to
Yeah.
watch anything they want. In Ace in the Hole, you bring it back to a similar time, early 1950s. This is 1951, which is when this came out, and you have this newspaper man. So I'm going from media manipulation to newspaper manipulation. So we're going backwards now because
Mhm.
newspapers used to be the thing to get your news and information from. Newspaper and radio. Nowadays, both of those don't really exist. They
Yeah.
do, but not the way they used to. Not even the way when I was growing up. I Most of my local papers don't even have paper prints anymore, just because nobody buys them. But this stars um um what's his name? Who's right on the front? Kirk Douglas, who is this newspaper man who had worked for a bunch of big newspaper companies in New York, Chicago, Cleveland, wherever, right? All these big metropolis newspapers, and he's been run out of town everywhere. He's
Mm.
kind of a scumbaggy guy. That's why he's been run out of town everywhere, because he's been using newspapers and screwing around with it when it comes to information and screwing around with it when it comes to news stories. And he ends up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's down in a small newspaper in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he's like, I'm gonna get a job here because I'm down and out. This is the last place I can go. So he gets a job there, and he's on his way to like cover a rattlesnake contest or something, like a snake contest, and he has no interest in this at all. He's kind of bored out of his mind. He takes this young kid with him who works the newspaper, and they stop off at this gas station to fill up gas. But something's going on at this local indigenous cave area. Some people are over there, and some people are driving like a car into it. It turns out that there was this guy searching around for Native American like arrowheads and pottery and stuff in these caves, and the cave collapsed on him. And so he decides to take this little event in the middle of the desert in nowhere and decides to write about it, but he decides to inflate the facts. He decides to change the things and sensationalize it and for personal gain, because he's going to use this to then manipulate people's perception of what's going on and people's ideas of what's going on. He's going to use it to not only gain like financial success, but to gain a job at a bigger newspaper company. But he's going to manipulate the hell out of the situation. He's going to get in cahoots with like the local law enforcement so that he's the only one who's allowed to go in and and check up on this guy and get first-hand access to everything. He's going to manipulate the local construction company that's trying to rescue this guy to change things so that he can prolong the story. And of course, when you're manipulating the real lives of people and you're messing with people's real lives, you know bad things can happen. Things can run out of your control, and that's kind of what ends up happening in this movie. But Kirk Douglas in this film is such a scumbag and doing all of these things. And what's so fascinating about this is that you can imagine that this is kind of what happens today, where people who are only interested in their personal gain will mess around with people's lives and not care. They just won't care. Whether it is a large group of people, whether it's people in marginalized groups like we see now with the marginalizing the LGBTQ plus community or minority communities or whatever, and painting them in a certain way to for profitable gain or to push an agenda. Um, we see this all the time for personal gain, and that's what happens in this movie. The script is fantastic in this movie. The acting is great. It's really one of the all-time great Billy Wilder films. I know this is a movie that Spike Lee loves. I think he has a special feature on here talking about it. I think he teaches this when he teaches at NYU. So yeah, it's a great movie. I've had this Blu-ray in my collection for probably a dozen years. But it was nice to go back and revisit it. Steven, I know you said, yeah, it's been a little while since
It's
you've
been a
seen this
minute, yeah.
movie. But do you
But no,
remember actually liking it?
yeah, Billy
Mm.
Wilder, man. It's hard not to like any Billy Wilder movie you see. I just remember the performance being amazing. Like you said, Kirk Douglas, he could play that steely, that steely like figure that's like always up to something pretty well. Especially for being a lead actor in most things. Usually you leave that character for a character actor that's that's the guy that is known for that. But like Kirk Douglas can play, slimy pretty well. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like in the like the visuals, like the black and white. It's beautiful,
Mm.
beautiful black and white film. Yeah,
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 it is. Yeah, it is. In black and white, beautiful black and white film. I'm curious if Criterion will give this an upgrade at some point, because this Blu-ray is about, like I said, like a dozen or so years old. When did this? Yeah, oh, it came out in 2014. All right, so not so long ago. This was back at the time when they were doing their dual format Blu-ray and DVD combos. Their first time around, they were doing that. So
yeah.
that's how long ago this came out. But it's really good. It's really timely too.
Well, I
This
was gonna
is
say,
modern times.
I mean, you picked a. I mean, I would assume you would say this is better than WUSA, but you picked a film that is very much like like you said, relevant, like WUSA is about how the media manipulates people. Like you said, that's the main theme, and I think that the paper, that movie explores it in a way more, probably a way more detailed way than that movie did. WUSA did, and
Very much so.
and even better kind of colors how it relates to today.
Very much so. I obviously this is more closely related to today. I would say
Sure,
WUSA in a sense because
because of the tech and
because of the tech, because it's very much like 20 or so years later you would get something
yeah.
like Fox News would come around, and that's very much kind of what WUSA
Basically,
is.
like you said, if
You know what I mean?
if Network was the third movie in this, you could watch them three movies and it would be perfectly transitioning
Yeah, you
to
could get
each,
yeah, you would get newspaper,
radio.
radio, television.
Yeah,
And you would
yeah.
see kind of this
Now you need the
thing.
internet version.
You need like a podcast version of that, or like an internet radio version of that.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's very interesting also kind of like the way in which this film, you know, plays with humanity or lack thereof. I find kind of fascinating because there's something that gets lost in this world of whether it's social media
yeah,
like we have now. There's the human factor that gets lost when you're messing with people, and you don't really factor those things into it. And Kirk Douglas' character in this really didn't factor in this poor guy who was literally being crushed, crushed inside of this cave.
yeah,
Um, he wasn't he wasn't factoring in the humanity of that, like the need to help somebody just went out the window versus helping your own self. And
yeah,
I know there's a whole, probably definitely anti-capitalist type of movie and whatnot, where for personal profit, stomping on the other person to gain stuff and whatnot. That's definitely a theme in this. And yeah, I thought of Ace in the Hole. There were a couple, like I said, Network was one I thought of. I thought of other like radio-based types of movies too. Like I thought about Good Night and Good Luck,
yeah,
the Edward R. Murrow film dealing with McCarthyism.
mm,
McCarthyism being another thing that was, a politically motivated thing to demonize a group of people.
yeah,
Being the Hollywood communism and stuff like that. It's very interesting how every generation kind of has these types of things. I was also thinking of even something like Pump Up the Volume,
Yeah.
which with Christian Slater, when he's running that kind of pirate radio network,
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to like get a message out. That's a more positive message
Yeah.
than in terms of negative messaging and stuff like that. But I was thinking of those types of movies too. Even Broadcast News, which is a
Mm-hmm.
movie I don't think a lot of people talk about. I feel like Network gets it takes all the thunder from Broadcast News, and
Yeah.
Broadcast News is really really good. But more people need to see and talk about that movie. So I was thinking of all those types of things.
Yeah. Politically charged media.
Even
Yeah.
like All the President's Men.
Yeah.
And then All the King's Men was another one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking of all these political movies, even like JFK. I was like, anything Oliver Stone that political, it's like, yeah, that seems a little,
Yeah.
He loved those conspiracy theory types of things. Anything to do with conspiracy theories or conspiracy types of movies. Oh, The Parallax View was something that came to my mind immediately, but I don't own that movie at all. And
Yeah.
there's two editions, I think one from Imprint and one from Criterion of Parallax View. You want to see 1970s like political paranoia? Check out Parallax View. And I was also thinking Manchurian Candidate too, because
Yeah.
I rewatched the remake rather recently. So
Awesome.
yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
That was my
Went
mindset.
down, it went down a rabbit hole of political thrillers.
Indeed.
Yes. But all right. Well, that is it for our unwatched pile. A couple comments here to end it. Douglas is so great in that. Very relevant film for this day. Ace is great. Have you seen Octoman?
No, I haven't.
It turns into Squid in the Hole. Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for this unwatched pile. Of course, you can, if you're not going to watch this, you can listen to it later on the Apple Podcast feed, along with, of course, the bi-weekly Chasing Labels. Wait for that for next Monday night, I'm guessing, right, Andrew?
That is when it will be as of right now, unless
Live.
anything major drops. I know upcoming this week we will have Eureka and Arrow announcements.
Yeah.
Criterion has already announced their stuff literally the day after our previous episode of Chasing Labels. So those three will definitely be on the docket.
Yeah.
And I want to assume Indicator as well. I don't think they've announced this month's yet.
Yeah.
But I also can't remember. So we shall see when the time comes.
Yeah. So watch out for that. Of course, not only live here on the YouTube channel, but also on the podcast form if that's more convenient for you. Watch out for maybe some reviews soon. We got some Blu-ray reviews we're probably going to be dropping soon. Might have a little cool interview coming up soon. Watch out for that. As you saw, our recent movie Mutations announcement, that of course has a explainer video of what the game is, and just watch out for more news on that. That is it for this episode, this installment of the Unwatched Pile. And hey, can you just just bye, leave, see ya, bye.